Going to call to order Shelton City Council meeting for August 20th, 2019. Could we all rise for the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Donna, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember Dorsey.
Here.
Councilmember Inesco.
Here.
Councilmember Krantz.
Here.
Mayor Rogers.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Any changes to the agenda from the council? Okay, City Manager Knighton asked for one slight change. He's got an introduction to make for council reports.
Immediately after, if that's okay.
We'll wait till after. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so we'll begin with council reports. Councilmember Dorsey.
I don't have a whole lot to report, other than my normal briefings. I did attend the chamber event out at Mason Lake last week, and it was real nice. I'll let you guys talk about that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nisco.
Outside our regular meetings and briefings, I attended also the dinner at the lake on Thursday the 15th, a Lions Club meeting on Wednesday the 14th. I attended a brief state audit entrance meeting on the 8th. I had a meeting with the business leader in Shelton on Friday the 16th. And that is it for this week,
Okay.
or
thank
last
you.
week. Excuse me.
Councilmember Krantz.
All right, well, I do have my normal staff briefings, and tomorrow morning, am going to be attending my criminal justice board meeting. And it looks like in almost 10 days or so from now, we're gonna have an employee appreciation barbecue, and I really love to attend the barbecues whenever I can. So that completes my report.
Okay, thank you. Last couple of weeks, I've had several meetings with constituents and some local businesses regarding issues in town. I attended, along with Councilmember Nisco and Councilmember Krantz, the entrance meeting for the auditor. Upcoming will be our budget committee. I'll let the chairman address that, but the council budget committee has met once and will meet again. So that's my report. Deputy Mayor Peterson.
In addition to constituent meetings, as Bob mentioned, we had our first executive budget meeting, which was held with staff to look at the budget. Our next one will be again before the end of the month. We're working towards 2020 and looking at programs and trying to look at a balanced budget. So in advance, thank you to Jeff and staff for their hard work in putting that together.
Okay, Councilmember McDowell.
Well, after council last on the 6th, before that, I attended the neighborhood party on Mankey Hill. And after it, I went to Neelam Park, met with a constituent several times during the week, attended the Chamber Cameo Boutique after hours in Union, conference call with Jeff, Lions Club, and then my mind went blank at the end of the week. I missed a couple things. That was my birthday week, so that's excusable.
Okay.
We met, talked about the budget.
Oh, yes, we met and talked about the budget, Joe and I.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt.
I had an EDC board meeting and the EDC luncheon at Mason General Hospital last Friday. It was very well done. Also participated in the council executive budget committee, and had a couple of constituent meetings, and specifically regarding some of the homelessness issues that are going on in the city, and looking forward to this next coming week.
Okay. Thank you. City Manager Knighton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight I did want to introduce one of our new employees, a very strong member of our finance team that will help us as we're developing this year's budget, or excuse me, the 2020 budget, and the budgets beyond. Don Quizme is come to us from Minnesota, and we're very happy to have him. Moved out here and is enjoying life in the Pacific Northwest, and hopefully we won't have the 2 feet of snow we got in February. I'm sure he's used to that and trying to move away from it. So Don, if you'd like to introduce yourself. And
well, I think you did a good introduction. gotcha. Yeah, I have a background in government finance, so when I was looking for a job out here, found this one at City of Shelton, that they offered me the job, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay,
Welcome.
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 Thank you.
okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, the next segment is for general public comment. There's a sign-up sheet in the north, or in the outer foyer, excuse me, my term. And that list will be up to Donna, and Donna has a list now. If anyone has not signed the list that would not like to comment tonight during the first session? Okay, Donna?
There is no one signed up.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and second to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, first up, we have a presentation from Zachary Lund of the Masonry Institute of Washington.
Do I need the clicker for the,
Oh, we have the, is it not up there?
that mouse right here?
Oh, there it is.
Next slide. Okay, there you go. Good evening, City Council. My name is Zach Lund, and I'd like to introduce my project manager, Tanya Soror-Neal. And I've been given the opportunity to work on a case study about the Shelton. Masonry Institute of Washington was founded in 1972 as a nonprofit providing educational and technical services to the architectural, engineer, and construction industry. We are funded by the masonry industry, which is our suppliers and et cetera. One thing that we do is provide a service to communities like Shelton and working for downtown preservation and economic development. And we decided to select Shelton because I've been a community member, and with little research, knowing the opportunity in Shelton that's here, it's a great place for growth. So looking at the case study outline, we are currently in phase 1. So we're doing an introduction, looking at the case study zone, identifying some opportunity, looking at some current projects, and then we'll go into phase 2, which will be building property and going into depth about potential properties and businesses in the downtown corridor. And then we're working with Cloverfield Technical College to provide map and renderings on the downtown corridor. So hopefully we can come back and show you guys some before and after visuals of that. That would be great. And then we're gonna look into potential programs that can help provide growth for Shelton and those tools that could be deployed in the downtown corridor. And then lastly, in phase 3, we hope to provide you guys with a case study with written plan with final renderings, maps, and recommendations, and we hope to give that to you guys in December. So this is the case study focus zone as today. As you can see, it's from Coda Street to Franklin, from Front to 5th Street. And as of today, this is the zone that we're focusing on. As you can see, the red squares that are marked, there are 9 of them, and those are the buildings that are vacant or potential business owners could move into right now. And I would just like to mention that next, it's kind of hard to see, but the orange square down here is Brewer Park, and focusing on a plan in order to get community engagement and events and work on that area is high on our priority list. And then in the top left, as you can barely see this building, it's out of the focus zone, but we're deciding to focus on that based on the high volume of traffic that goes along First Street right there as people are going from Highway 101 to Highway 3. And lastly, there's a green line in the alleyway between Coda Street and Railroad, and looking into potentially utilizing that to its full potential for businesses and community engagement would be great as well. Before we go into the business development, recognizing all the educational development and the infrastructural development that has been taking place in Shelton as the YMCA is being built, the roundabout roadway and Shelton High School, Mountain View, and all the other schools' development is showing that Shelton is really a place for growth already, and that there's a lot of tools that could also be deployed to help in the downtown corridor specifically. So going into the business development, this is the Pine Street Restaurant, or what's known formally as the Pine Street Restaurant. And this is a high traffic intersection, and understanding what anchor businesses and what models could get these high traffic intersection people to actually stop and visit and start investing in the downtown corridor. It would be great. There's been talk about fresh codes coming in 2020 that could help overcome a lot of obstacles that these property owners and business owners and entrepreneurs are having in getting in certain areas based on the code requirements. Next is the historical design. So looking at the foundation and the core of the buildings in most of downtown corridor, making sure that you keep a theme with the historical Shelton that we already have in all these beautiful buildings. Showing that there are tax incentives for being in these historical buildings and looking at the deferments that are available will also be essential. And that all leads back into that downtown corridor investment, which starts circulating capital and really promotes further preservation and business growth. Affordable change. So these two buildings are located right next to each other off of Coda Street, and the bottom half is what we call brick veneer. And little changes in cosmetics to these storefronts can make a big difference for the value for the property owner, for the entrepreneurs. It'll be advantageous to see new storefronts and really want to get in there as soon as they can, and that also creates local job opportunity as construction and building is happening. Looking at impactful ordinances, this can bring cohesiveness and a historic updated look. It will also drive more traffic, and again, just that downtown corridor investment is so important and vital. And we do have some examples. So this is from the downtown corridor in Kirkland, Washington. This is an incentive material ordinance that if you use certain materials and certain construction requirements, then you can be pushed to the top of building permits and all sorts of incentivization that really promotes getting people into these buildings, whatever their business being. And again, just more of those incentive ordinances to try and promote that growth and try and fill those spaces so that there's some business market competitiveness that people can feed off each other and really promote growth. So what Masonry Institute of Washington brings is preservation experience, so working with other downtown communities to promote this growth, and specifically working with historical buildings and all the materials that go along with it. Ordinance and code writing experience. We have drafted codes and ordinances with other downtown corridors and for other people, so have experience in that. And then lastly, the key resources for tools and growth. So working in coalition with the Washington Main Street Program and the Department of Historic Preservation, and also reaching out to other funding opportunities like grants.com and the Commerce, and looking into these other organizations that could be deployed for Shelton. So some action items. Next will be phase 2. So that will be going into depth with the businesses and the buildings that have potential for new business owners. Looking at individual program opportunities, like the Main Street Program and the Walkable Livable Community. There's all sorts of different organizations, but looking at what demand they can meet and what Shelton needs, that will be the next step in picking what's right for Shelton. And then just looking into the incentives, regulations, and codes individually, and seeing what could be changed or rephrased in order to best suit Shelton's needs. So this is an example. Historic Downtown Issaquah, they utilize the Main Street Program and funding tools and other resources in order to promote this economic development and preservation. And they have turned their town around with multiple event gatherings that have been added, preservation and just more businesses in that core area, and it's been very lucrative to them. Another example would be Jeffersonville in Indiana, and they also utilize the Main Street program, and they have done the same. As you can see in the top right picture, they've created that consistent theme that people like to see as they drive by, and it's really inviting to the people who are visiting or just passing by, and really drives their attention to stop and, you know, kind of check it out and see what's new. And with that, I am open for questions, comments, anything you guys can do to help, or, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Questions or comments? Councilmember?
I guess I'm a little bit unsure exactly what you would like from us. It all looks good. Did I miss that in your presentation? What are you requesting of the city council?
I'm here to show an introduction of service already funded, and we're just trying to promote community and economic development along with valuing the historical buildings that run deep in the roots of our industry.
Okay, and so you'd be just if I could you, yeah, so you'd be working like with our city manager and all, and just kind of trying to help and see where it's mainly masonry fronts and things like that. Masonry is.
Yeah, but I mean, in all facets, in all industries, we're just trying to promote growth. I have met with Knighton and Deidre, and I'd love to meet with the rest of you, and we'd love as much help as we could get as far as information and working together.
Thank you.
And this, I've mentioned Main Street programs before and how that program in particular can benefit downtown Shelton. Historic preservation and other items, other agenda bullet points that we can tick off that have been proven to work and enhance investment and activity in our downtown core. So appreciate the presentation and how that might be able to help us in the future.
Okay. Councilmember Schmidt?
Can you share with us on the case study focus zone map that you have? Can you share with us how the opportunity locations were identified in that particular area of the
That
city?
was actually going through a walkthrough and seeing all the buildings that are open. The next phase will really look further into what businesses or the property owners and what they're really looking for.
Okay.
But based off the walkthrough, that's
So it's just kind of a visual drive-by and kind of get a feel for just the Main Street area downtown
yeah,
here.
yeah, and
Railroad.
open to changing the zone or adding or whatever. That's just as of today in phase one, that's our focus area.
And just to follow up, those red, the red buildings that you said are available, are vacant. Are they vacant and available or just vacant? And I believe, has that been kind of
At least half of
cross-referenced?
them are ready for lease.
Okay.
So what are those streets? What streets are those that the circle goes, yellow circle goes around? Or the yellow
The Coda Street in Franklin.
coded Franklin?
Coda to Franklin from Front to Fifth Street.
Very good.
Other questions for Zach? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Dwayne Wilson for LTAC Lodging and Tax Advisory Committee report on bluegrass in the forest.
Thank you, Mayor Rogers. And I have to apologize, I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, so I just goofed. So don't have a great reason for that
We
happening.
really missed you, Dwayne.
But I included our program that Gary commented about, and a survey, and then the form that we used to request the funds that we were awarded. And kind of just talk a little bit real quickly, excuse me, go through these amount of people that came to our event, maybe go through the questionnaire and then the program. So as you go through, we brought in, I think, 2,120 was the number that we estimated. Dave Miser works with us, the auditorium manager, to develop that number. And then we do give out these questionnaires and get them back, and that's how, as you look further into this form, you'll see zip codes where they came from different communities. And then there's also one there, which ones came from out of country, which ones came from out of state, how many people came. A big thing with the hotel motel tax people is how many people came from more than 50 miles. And those are the questions that are asked, and that as the city, we're asked to provide to the state, that we're actually doing things with the money that we're awarded. We use our money strictly for marketing. We turned in $8,350 in actual receipts for marketing efforts that we made to KMAS, Daily Olympian, Tacoma News Tribune. And so that's where we use those funds for, strictly for marketing. So as you look through the weekend of our festival, there are no rooms available in Shelton. We had 139 in the Shelton Inn, Super 8, Shelton City Center, Little Creek Casino, Sunrise Motel Hoodsport, the Hilton Garden Inn in Olympia, the Doubletree in Olympia. And it's not just us, the motor place out there, Mankey's place out there, they bring in a lot of people too. But there are no rooms that weekend in this area. So we definitely bring people in. We also had a record for us this year, I think it was 108 actual camps. And when you go to those camps, there's 2 to 3 people in each one. They bring RVs. Usually in the faculty parking lot, there's bigger RVs, and then out in the woods, there's tents and smaller RVs. And then out in the general campus, the tent campers are out in there. And one of our endeavors this year was to get younger, and so it's just not guys my age going out there. And we had a lot of families, and we put on a youth program as we go through the program. It lists who our sponsors are. It lists the band lineup. And if you look on the back, there's a picture of a young man who was in our youth program playing the violin. And we had, I think, close to 30, 35 kids up there playing different instruments, doing vocals. They get to play on the same stage as these guys that we pay a lot of money to come here to. So it's, we also have band scrambles, a banjo contest, mandolin tasting. That's where Alan Bybie's a 6-time national mandolin player of the year. He'll take your grandpa's mandolin and play his $200,000 mandolin, play your grandpa's, and show you how they look, comment on it, maybe things you can do to improve it. So that's what a mandolin tasting is. He doesn't bite it, he actually plays on it. And then we have open mics and a band scramble. That's put names in a hat of all the different instruments, and they pick them out, and you have an hour to pick a name, you do 3 songs. The winner then opens the Saturday night show. So it's just fun way to get people involved and do those kind of things. Then again, we do the Chick Rose School of Bluegrass. Unfortunately, Chick Rose has passed away, but we do that in his name. And it helps us to get younger and bring people in. Part of the hotel motel tax requirements is pretty much on our request. We do get some pretty interesting comments about what we can do to improve, how bad the food is, whatever, and so we do get a lot of comments out of that, and then we ask people, how well they enjoyed it, how many times they've been. We ask directly for their zip code, and again, did they come 50 miles? How many nights did they stay? How did they hear about it? We'd really like to hear how they heard about it so we can focus those marketing dollars. And speaking of that, in the last 2 years, Gary commented about how this is a lot more professional than we used to be, but Rachel Hansen from Northwest Events, who Mayor Rogers has been having some discussion, and she does all the marketing for the county, and that's how she came to be helping us. But these are all her efforts, and last year she did the same thing, really nice program. She does a lot of things online. I think we have about 850 names now on our list of people that have been here, so we send them an email, invite them to come back to our festival, those kinds of things. And so she's really helped us come in, do Facebook and all those different online media to get the word out about our festival. So as you look through these bands, North Country's from Seattle, they're dobro players from Canada, Alan Bybie's from South Carolina, me and the boys, they're from around here. The Warren G. Hardings are from Seattle. The Slocum Ramblers are from kind of central Canada. So we bring them in. Runaway Train is Greg Linder and a group from around here that some of you may or may not know. But so we do try to bring in a lot of variety, and that brings in the folks from out of town. And we're gradually, unfortunately, of those 2,200 people, probably only a couple hundred of them come from Shelton, Mason County. I've lived here all my life. I know a lot of them. And most of these folks are from out of town, which is a good thing. It's what we're tasked to do. But we're gradually doing better in the Shelton Mason County area, so. Any questions?
Thanks, Dwayne.
Yep.
Questions for Dwayne?
I probably know the answer to this, but if you buy one ticket, it covers the whole weekend?
Well, we have a variety of, we have individual events all day Saturday, or you can buy a $45 weekend pass, and that gets you into everything. One thing I left out too, we do midnight hot dogs, and all these kids that were there, we gave away like 240 hot dogs. Greg and I cooked that night, and people just gather around, have fun. It's a family thing. We have a Saturday night dance you'll see on the program. So, like I said, we're really trying to make it a family-friendly event, which I think it is a family-friendly event. I should say it that way.
Councilmember Franz?
Yeah, well, first I'd like to thank you, Dwayne, for your, you know, I mean, you were there, you were there on like day one on this.
Greg and I, yes.
And I was on the thank you.
And
bond.
Christmastown Kiwanis, it's not just Greg and I.
Oh, I know, Dwayne, but you know, you're a humble guy. So on the thank you for volunteers thing, your name's not even in the volunteer list here. There you go. And then, just one other little thing, if I may please
Yes,
entertain
you
you
may.
for just a second. On this open night mic thing in the back here, so these are non-amplified instruments, right?
Yes, they just play in microphones.
So if I brought my 59 Gibson and stack of Marshalls and wanted to kind of work out some ZZ Top tunes, no can do?
3 songs, I think is what he limits it to. You can play anything you want, because we actually do get a lot of covers of Beatles songs, Merle Haggard. There's country western fringe and a gypsy jazz. There's all sorts of different styles.
I won't bring my Gibson.
I like ZZ Top.
Other questions? Quick one, Dwayne. Do you idea of how many return, what's your return percentage and how many?
Well, it's amazing. Most of the ones from Oregon have been here a lot of times. So, and we'll get 100, 150 people from the Portland area mostly, but all around Oregon. So what would you guess? Probably 75, 80%. I would say at least, maybe more than that. This year, though, we did have a lot of first timers that Greg had heard anecdotally, and I have, and other folks have. So it's a big loyal group. They like, and a lot of them spend the money and never go to the festival. They just sit out in the parking lot and play music all weekend with their friends. So anyway, and they're very loyal people and well behaved. We don't have much litter or any of those kinds of things. We've never had any horrible issues with any of those, out of line type things.
Okay. Well, thank you for the report and thank you for
You
the
bet.
event. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Chief Moody left, correct? So it's Shannon up for the code enforcement report this evening.
Maybe if we could postpone that if he comes back, because he probably went for an emergency. Is that-
Yeah, let me,
You want
I'll find out if he'll be able to return.
Okay.
If not, I'll take the PowerPoint and give it my best shot.
okay. Didn't mean to put you on.
So in that case, I move that we table the code enforcement presentation until later in tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, we'll move into our business agenda for this evening. Has anyone signed up for comments tonight?
I don't have anyone.
Okay, I see no hands raised, so all right, we'll move on to the first item. Business is Community Development Director Mark Ziegler is going to speak to us about the rotating art gallery.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Once again, bringing you recommendations from the Shelton Arts Commission for placement in the Civic Center Rotating Art Gallery. These are 3-month installations. The general call for artists was placed with a deadline of July 19th. 2 artists submitted for placement in the gallery. The Arts Commission met on August 6th and are bringing you the recommendations today with those 2 artists, Rosalie Thune and Mariah Avalar, 5 pieces each. With your approval, the work would be installed on September 4th and up through November 29th. Again, if the council concurs, I would ask for action tonight so we can notify the artists, they can prep their artwork, and we can be ready to install on the 4th.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mark? Okay. Deputy Mayor,
Kathy?
One question.
go ahead, Councilmember.
Now I forgot what I was gonna ask. Does it have to be local art?
No,
Okay.
no, we've had, typically the call is typically listed as Washington State artists, so it's somewhat regional. We don't want to deal with anything that we have to send back, via mail or shipping or anything like that, and be too onerous on staff. But typically, we say Washington State artists. We've had people in Seattle, North Seattle area, and it's far down to, Vancouver area as well. So we've had people over the years from various areas throughout the state.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the Shelton Arts Commission's recommendations for placement in the Civic Center's rotating art gallery.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the Shelton Arts Commission's recommendations for placement in the Civic Center rotating art gallery. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Do we need to waive the three-touch rule?
No, I think it's been council's practice. Well,
Yeah, I would just consider it waived.
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next on the business agenda is the 2019 residential paving contract and award. Public Works Director Craig Gregory has details.
Thanks, Mayor and council members. Several weeks ago, we put out the contract for the residential paving for 2019. Identified the area of West Mountain View with a little alteration spilling into East Mountain View for this contract area. We ended up receiving 7 bids ranging between $194,797 and at the high end, $267,299 with Central Paving out of Ellensburg being the low bidder out of those 7.
Okay,
Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
questions for Craig?
I'm just glad we're keeping our commitment.
Okay. Hearing none, are we in agreement to move this forward to the action agenda for September 2nd? 3rd, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that is end of the business agenda. We'll move on to the action agenda. Anyone signed up for any items on that agenda?
No, there isn't, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So the first is back to Public Works Director Gregory on information about the sole source purchase agreement.
Thanks again, Mayor. As we talked about a couple of weeks ago, looking to upgrade the membrane plates at the satellite wastewater treatment plant. This contract would be with Kubota as the distributor with a total contract amount of $197,428.48. Be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have on this contract.
Okay, questions for Craig? Councilmember Schmidt.
Craig, what was the time frame again on these and time frame for installation? Was it to be ordered this fiscal year and installed this fiscal year?
Yes, absolutely. It'd be out of the 2019 budget.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions for Craig? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 11500719 and authorize the mayor to sign purchase order number P00051 for the purchase of Kubota membrane units.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 11500719 and authorize me to sign purchase order number P00051 for the purchase of Kubota membrane units. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we're to City Manager Jeff Knighton, information about the OpenGov software purchase.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As we discussed on the business agenda several weeks ago, the OpenGov software platform would provide us the ability to increase transparency to the public about our budgeting functions and allow us to report on those functions and how dollars are being spent and what return we're getting for those tax dollars. We'll be able to report that to the public in a near real-time basis. It will also decrease our budgeting efforts from about 3 to 3.5 months down to hopefully a little over a month in future years. And we'll be able to communicate from a single source, run surveys and test the waters to see where the public's at and find out what they're most interested in at the time, so we can concentrate on those functions, make sure we're responding to the needs of the citizens of Shelton. With that, there have been no changes to the contract from the one you saw several weeks ago, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Questions for City Manager Knighton? Councilmember Kranz?
Well, this is something that you had kind of recommended to us that would be a good idea for us to do. And I looked at the information, and in my conversations with you, I think it's a good move for the city of Shelton. And it also, what it shows is your, the quality that you have to bring into, from your expertise, things that we may not be aware of. And as a city manager, I just wanted to thank you. You're doing a great job. At least I think so. And so this is an example of you bringing some things in that will help us do our jobs better, because we might not have known about this. And so just to let you know that you are doing a good job, thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Jeff, a question came up during my discussions on the budget, and that's moving ahead, the annual license fee is approximately $40K, correct? 40,000.
Slightly less, but close, yep.
So, and that's an ongoing expense, assuming we continue with the product.
That's correct. It is a 5-year contract. However, their contract does have an out clause that allows us to get out of the contract at any time, so long as no money is budgeted for this specific function.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move to accept and approve the OpenGov contract.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
No?
All right, we have a motion, a second to accept and approve the OpenGov contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, not seeing,
So Chief Moody did just write back and said he's on his way. So hoping I hear footsteps, but I don't. So
would you like to give your report first, or you want to wait?
I will give my report, and I'll talk very slowly. So I did, as the council's aware, I did attend the Washington City County Managers Association Conference last week and got a lot of good information from that conference, particularly in regard to risk management and lessons learned about things that we can look for and make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of others, which I think is very important. And also good information about land use planning changes, affordable housing, and workforce housing issues that we can definitely apply here in Shelton. Did want to mention, as part of the code enforcement update, but we are halfway through the community cleanup program, and the next 4 events will be held at Bordeaux Elementary School, so we're moving to the south side of town and continue our efforts in that direction with the goal of being done prior to school starting. And I did, again, want to extend my appreciation to Shelton School District and Mason County Garbage, as well as the county transfer station, for all their help in completing this program and trying to make Shelton the best it can possibly be. Next, as mentioned by Councilmember Krantz, we are having an employee appreciation barbecue on the 30th, which is the Friday right before Labor Day. We will be closing the city at 1 o'clock on that day. We are posting on social media accounts and on our phone message so that hopefully it doesn't catch anybody by surprise. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned that here tonight as just another channel of communication. I want to make sure that people are aware of that. Go out and have some burgers and hot dogs and hopefully have a good time. And show our employees how much we appreciate their efforts every day for the things that they do for the citizens of Shelton. And lastly, wanted to mention particularly because it is audit season, our minutes. You've probably noticed over the last couple months that for every council meeting we've had, we're approving about a month's worth of minutes. And that's something that absolutely needs to be done. It has to be done every time. By the time our September, I believe it's the 17th, meeting rolls around, we should be fully caught up. And that is a direct result of the efforts of our city clerk, Donna Nault, who is not on camera. And
Clapping, please.
and the people she works with, including Leandra Sharp, who has put a tremendous amount of effort into that endeavor. But we'll be caught up and we'll be able to start doing other things with that time that's been spent on this task.
I believe I speak for the whole council, but we appreciate that very much. So, thank you. I have one thing that I forgot in the agenda.
Okay.
It probably won't take very long. Do we have any comments for the second period?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
I'm just grabbing the mouse just in case, or asking Michelle to grab me the mouse so I can do the PowerPoint just in case.
I just have one question about, just for the public's information, then on the garbage pickups at Bordeaux School, because it was a little unclear in the past for me, it's basically it's no oils, no toxic things, no tires, so what are the rules on that one?
So, of course, no oils, no paint, no tires, no large appliances, just household garbage and refuse. I do understand that the United Way, I believe, is running another campaign immediately following ours. I believe it's the weekend after ours ends, where they will be taking appliances and tires and things like that. Don't know about paint. That's usually pretty tough. But I would encourage anybody that's interested in disposing of old appliances and tires to contact the United Way, or you can contact the city and we'll try to put you in touch with that program and get more up-to-date details on it. I don't have them in front of me at the moment. Okay, so if we can, I'll try to go through this as best I can. So I did want to make a point that the aim of code enforcement is compliance and not punishment. The last thing we want to do is issue tickets to people and gain compliance that way. We want to provide the resources, which we are doing with our community cleanup program over 8 weeks in order to provide those resources and make sure it gets done. And make it as easy as possible. Keep it simple and make it easy, and that's what we're trying to do here with this program. Just wanted to show some pictures here of items that we're, again, not necessarily ticketing people unless we've talked to them more than.
Here comes the police chief.
Oh, good.
All right. It's all right. Yeah,
Chief,
You're up.
You're next.
Chief,
Yeah,
you're up.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Timing, right?
I started, yeah.
Didn't keep me out long enough, is that it? So you already got it kick-started?
I did.
This is second page.
Yep.
So right click or left?
Right.
Nope.
Nope.
Left, right?
The other right. There we go.
Okay, 300 block of East I Street. Some of the simpler things that you can take care of are just things like this. People leave their furniture out, they put a free tag on it and leave it sitting out there for an unlimited amount of time until somebody takes it. This is one of the better ones that she's worked on. These are cardboard recyclers? One of them. Yes. People decided to recycle cardboard and ended up with probably thousands of pounds of wet cardboard sitting out in their yard when they couldn't get the price of cardboard. One of the things we talk about often in code enforcement is compliance versus enforcement. Shannon's done a fantastic job of gaining compliance and cooperation with local businesses, partnering with her to help her clean up some of these places, as well as nonprofits. And you can tell I didn't do the PowerPoint. I'm not that creative. So several months ago, we did some pictures of a house, or it wasn't a house actually, it's just a property on Park Street. And I remember Councilman Schmidt saying several times about the health hazards he saw in that. This is that property. This is an example of her working with the owner, not the renter, and getting, enforcement through, or compliance through enforcement. Unfortunately, some of these residences you see are landlords that own several of these properties throughout town. And it's not isolated. Typically, when you find a landlord with one of these, it's not unusual for her to find a landlord with 3 or 4 of these. 300 block of D Street, just simple cleanup. This gentleman, I actually saw him again last Friday. 2 weeks in a row at our free dump. So he was one of those that took advantage of it. This trailer was falling apart. He was able to fix the trailer, and we facilitated getting him to the free dump day to be able to get rid of some of this stuff. That's our other cardboard collector. So code enforcement cases, since March of 19 is 50. Citations, she's only issued 2 citations. Vehicles tagged for towing is 35 and 17 vehicles towed. Again, conversation, letters sent to property owners. There's a property in your neck of the woods, Councilman Dorsey, that we've talked about that's an abandoned house up there that's bank owned. She's been in contact with the bank trying to gain compliance so that the bank helps, because the bank is going to be selling this in a foreclosure very soon, and she's been talking to them about, you're going to get more money out of your foreclosure if you get rid of the garbage around this. And so she's been successful in having contacts with out-of-state even banks and adding the local folks. So this is her slide, and I'll let you read it. So, I'm here to answer any questions, and so is the miracle worker.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that you had, what was it, 50 and only 2 citations, and that's fine, because we don't really want to cite, but what does it take to get the citation? That's what I'm wondering. What, is it repeat offense?
Typically, the first contact is just conversation.
Okay.
What can we do to help you? What do you need to facilitate getting this cleaned up? Here's the violations we see. It may be a second conversation to follow up, but we'll be back here next week to see what kind of progress you make. And she gives them time. It's not like tomorrow you will get this cleaned up. She gives them a time period that says, I'll be back on this date to check on you, see how you've done. If they haven't complied by the second time, that's usually the time that she's sending them a letter to the property owner, the renter, anybody else involved with the property of, here's the violations we see, here's the problems, please contact us, we'll give you some time frames to set up to clean it up. If that's not met or no contact is met, it's followed up by, you will be cited by this date, here's what's going, if you're not to have anything done, then here's what's coming. So they usually get at least 5 contacts before the citation comes. That's about right?
So they have time to get started.
And there's a lot out there that are getting started
Yeah.
that we could cite tomorrow. But like I said, it's just easier if it's on their dime and they're cleaning it up and they're putting some effort into it than us having to go out and take care of this. And out of those 50 complaints, I can tell you that year to date, total, Mark Ziegler gets them through his office, through the complaint process. Shannon gets maybe a small handful through her that people will contact her directly. Out of that 50, only about 20 of those or less are actually citizen complaints that came in.
I think she's doing a great job. There's a couple houses I've called Jeff on, and the next day they were clean. I mean, the yard was clean. There was beds and refrigerators and microwave ovens in their front yard. And
Hey, that was my house.
that was your neighbor.
One of my neighbors.
But I think doing a great job. And
Like I said, she's got a lot of partners around the community that she's worked well with, and not just in code enforcement, but animal control as well.
Yep, she
you know-
got a dog in my parking lot last week, and she says, I know this dog.
Yeah, and she's worked with the nonprofits, local folks, of getting them adopted out, finding homes for these dogs, and getting them taken care of. Yes, ma'am.
How about up on Coda? How's that coming along?
That's an interesting.
Every time I drive past, it's like,
That one's
What's going on with this?
currently in a family trust at the moment. So I think we will see some movement on that in the near future, one way or the other.
I hope so.
Okay. Councilmember Schmidt?
Just commend Officer Watanabe on her efforts here. This is impressive to see the change in the last few months, and obviously having more code enforcement would be a wonderful thing. Of course, we'd love to be able to support that. But my question will be on: is there anything else potentially that we should be doing or could be doing, be it from a policy perspective, an ordinance perspective, as you're going through this process? You guys are learning a little bit more, I'm sure. That the council could be supportive of or working towards?
There's two big things that we've discussed, and Jeff and I have talked about abatement, starting an abatement program. And whether that be with seed money through some other funding or whatever mechanism brings that about, of doing an abatement program. When we say abate, we don't necessarily have to level a house to abate it. We can go out there and clean up this house, get the court orders to clean it, remove the garbage out of it, and lean it while it's still, I mean, some of these houses are not to the point that need to be necessarily demolished. It's just a matter of cleaning them up. And we can do that with the people still in them through an abatement process. The second is, yes, there are some muni codes and city codes that Jeff and I have talked about that I'd like to bring forward. I have a couple of personal pet peeves in there, and one of them is we talked about unattached trailers. How long do you get to keep an unattached trailer on the city street? You know, and you'll have people saying, well, I get my RV and I come home and from camping and I want to unload it and I keep it for, okay, then let's set a period of time that you're allowed to keep that unattached trailer on the city street before you have to actually put it into a yard, a driveway, storage, et cetera, because we have a lot of unattached trailers around town. And I'm not just talking about RVs, boats, you saw garbage trailers, et cetera, that are just sitting out there on city streets. Little things like that that we can enforce with city codes that would be beneficial and help her.
I have one.
Go ahead.
It sounds like you had 20 complainants that filed something with the city. That was kind of the number. Have you gotten any feedback from them on the process and how things have gone?
I have not.
Are they satisfied customers, if you will?
No. I've had one call me through the animal control part. Said, oh, thank you for doing this. Oh, I have another one for you.
When you get good at something, you get more phone calls.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know if Mark's received much feedback.
We'll get some follow-up every once in a while. Typically, it's because action hasn't been
Sure.
as fast as they wished, you know, which can vary on the violation and how much cooperation you get. So usually it's a phone call asking where we are in the process, and I typically hand it over to the code enforcement officer at that point to follow up.
I would imagine some of even the 20 that I'm talking about approximately double. In other words, two people complaining about the same.
For sure. Thank you.
Question on vehicles.
Yes, sir.
About half of them got towed, so the other half were pulled back
Compliance.
out of public right of way, or?
Compliance.
Okay, okay. So from a neighbor standpoint, it may have just moved
Well,
5
yes.
feet or whatever.
If it's on a city right of way, it can be dealt with one way. If it's not on a city right of way, it's a totally separate ballgame.
Yeah.
So there are some vehicles that literally she has contacted and said, look, as long as you're in the city right of way, here's the laws you must obey, and they've put them into a yard.
Yeah.
But there are some that she's even facilitated, you know, people saying, I just want to get rid of this hunk of junk that's been sitting out in my front of my house for whatever. She'll contact somebody that she knows can come out and pay them scrap fees or whatever else to do this and get rid of it. Some of it is that simple, is just knowing who to contact, who to call, and how to get it done.
Do you ever guide them to the organizations that take cars?
Yeah, she has contacts throughout the community that she can call for certain equipment, cars, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, the one big issue that we face right now, and we're not the only ones facing it, is motorhomes and trailers. Even the scrappers don't want them. They don't make any money off of them. It's hard enough to get a junk vehicle towed to a normal tow yard because they make such a limited amount of money on some of these cars when they sell them as scrap. But when you have all the insulation and everything that goes with a motorhome or a trailer, nobody, literally the tow company says, we're not coming to get it. So then we have to find other means to come get it.
Councilman Cron?
Can I just say that this has been a real high priority, I think, with the citizens in Shelton for a long time, and because of a number of different reasons, we haven't quite addressed it. It appears that we're addressing it. It is the right way at the right time, and this is, I think, a priority that the citizens are very much appreciative of, and thank you all for your work you're doing.
kind of similar to that, could we get a copy of the PowerPoint? Because there are small groups that I associate with that'd be it'd be interesting to show them that some of the improvements and some of the issues, so.
We can send it to the city manager and he can distribute it.
Okay,
Be happy to, and also any PowerPoints or any other materials that are shared at council meetings are immediately the next day updated on our website so that they're available to the public. But I'd be happy to send all of you an individual copy.
right. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, our final item is from the council, new discussions or topics to bring up this evening. Anything from the left or from the right? Okay. That was, sorry. That was direction, not anything implied.
I'm an independent. Can I say something?
You may,
Walking,
member.
I'm walking the streets there of Shelton, and it's just phenomenal what the boys are doing and the city's doing on all of the sidewalks and the paving over there on the other side of Olympic Highway North. And, you know, that's like a whole brand-new state-of-the-art neighborhood when it's done, you know, and that was just doing a great job. It was very impressive. You kind of got to walk in and out of ditches right now, of course, but I can see that once the sidewalks actually get poured over there, and that I did notice one tree is lacking water. Because, yeah, all the little trees along Olympic Highway, I'll write this down.
Alder.
Olympic Highway North, right there, Third and Olympic Highway North, all of the little trees have a little water sac at the bottom of them, I think, or something. And one doesn't, and its little leaves are wilting. And so, Third and Olympic Highway North, one, there's no red sac on the bottom of it, the others all have it, and their leaves are doing fine. So, I don't know who took the red sac, but I'm imagining it has some sort of something in it to make the leaves not wilt, so.
We'll go take a look at that
Yeah,
tomorrow.
Third and Olympic Highway North, thank you.
All right, anything else?
No.
All right, our next meeting will be September 3rd, 2019 at 6 PM. We are adjourned.